Hi, I'm Scott Humprhey, CEO of the World Floor Covering Association, and this is Leadership Live. Did you know as a leader, as a human being, every decision you make has an impact? It doesn't only impact at the moment the decision is made, but it impacts throughout and often multiplies itself. Edward Lorenz did a doctoral thesis in front of the New York Academy of Sciences in 1963, where he came up with what we call the butterfly effect. His premise was that a butterfly could flap its wings on one side of the planet and set off a movement of molecules that would multiply itself and create a hurricane or cyclone on the other side of the planet. It was crazy, and they laughed him off the stage. But it was intriguing, and so it hung around in myths, stories, movies, books, until in the 1990s, physics professors began to research and dive into it more. They began to realize that it works every time with anything that moves, including people. They gave it the credibility of a law, just like the law of gravity. Let me get it right. That law is called the law of sensitive dependence on initial conditions, and it works every time. It means every decision you make matters. Norman Borlaug, you probably don't know the name. He was a contemporary of my grandfather. My grandfather worked with soybeans to create a hybrid that would work in arid climates. Norman Borlaug did the same thing with wheat and corn. He was sent to Mexico in 1940 to really work as they were facing a famine. And he is credited today with saving the lives of over 2 billion people. He won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1970, and in 2007, ABC News named him the Person of the Week for saving 2 billion lives. Colin Powell once said that millions of men and women, boys and girls, will go to sleep not hungry tonight and never know his name. But he did it. One decision he made changed the world. But was it really Norman Borlaug, or was it Henry Wallace? Now, you may not know the name of Henry Wallace, but he was the second vice president under FDR. He had three. He was the middle one. But before being the vice president, he was the Secretary of Agriculture. And while the Secretary of Agriculture, he sent a man by the name of Norman Borlaug to Mexico to work with the creation of a wheat and a corn that would work in arid climates. So was it Norman Borlaug, or was it Henry Wallace? Or was it George Washington Carver? You know George Washington Carver. He created 266 things that we still use today from the peanut, 88 things we still use today from the sweet potato. George Washington Carver, when he was 19, went to Iowa State University. At Iowa State University, he had a dairy science professor who had a 6-year-old boy that on the weekends, on Saturdays and Sundays, he would let George Washington Carver take him out on botanical expeditions. He began to fall in love, this young boy, with plants and with what they could do to help human beings. That 6-year-old boy's name? Henry Wallace. So was it Norman Borlaug? Was it Henry Wallace? Or was it George Washington Carver that really saved 2 billion people? Or was it Moses and Susan, a farmer and his wife from Diamond, Missouri? Missouri was a slave state, but they didn't believe in slavery. They kept their people as if they were family. And one night, a group of people called Quatrails Raiders came through, and they were really big on enforcing slavery. And so they would burn down the barns of anyone who did not also enforce slavery. They took Moses' friend, Mary, and they began to drag her off. She would not let go because she was hanging on to her infant child, and they both were dragged away. Their barn was burned. They had very little left, but Moses and Susan, because Mary was Susan's best friend, decided they would give everything they had to save Mary's life. Moses sent out messengers to see if he could get a meeting with Quatrails Raiders. And while he was there, he finally got a meeting with them. He took the one horse he had left, and he traded that horse for what they threw to him in a burlap sack. Mary was gone, but in that burlap sack was her infant child, almost frozen to death. Moses took his shirt and ripped it open. He put the child next to his skin to warm him. And he talked to that child on his way home, and he said, "Listen, your mom was an amazing woman, and in her honor, I will make sure you get the best education, and I will give you my last name." And for that reason, Moses and Susan Carver raised George Washington Carver as their own. So, was it Norman Borlaug? Was it Henry Wallace? Was it George Washington Carver? Or was it Moses and Susan Carver? And I could go on. But what I hope you get from this link of stories is the fact that every decision you make matters. Take nothing for granted. The decisions you choose not to make matter. The decisions you make matter. Go out there and do something, but make it something that does good for mankind. Run your businesses, run them with integrity, run them the best, and live your life that way. And then go out there and lead.